Title of my sermon is, What Really Matters? What really matters in this life? Perhaps you've thought that. If you haven't, maybe you need to. Today we will be starting a series. I will be starting a series, and hopefully you will follow along. And we will be going through the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes was read during the Feast of Tabernacles every year for thousands of years. And hopefully you can understand why afterward, because it really asks the question, what really matters? Not only asks it, but answers it. And as I said, I think it is the greatest motivational self-help book in the world. I have read many. I think many people here I've talked to that read different motivational books. Perhaps you have read some of these. Atomic Habits. Anybody here? Okay, I figured you had. And it's about making change. Even small little changes like 1% can make a difference in your life if you continue to make those differences. As a matter of fact, sold 25 million copies. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I see one hand up there. I think that was pretty, I see Henry there too. I read it because that's what I was, 30 Million by Dale Carnegie. I read that many years ago. And a lot of common sense stuff in there. So, Think and Grow Rich, one of the first books that I was given. I see Eric there. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Sold over 100 million copies. Of course, it was written almost 100 years ago. And then the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yes, got a few there. As that sold millions, and by Stephen Covey, 40 million. Then there was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. 24 million copies. So by all these copies being sold, motivational books plus others out there, people want to know, how do I help myself? How do I find my purpose in this world? And then what do I do about it? How do I want to live in this world? A happy life? The old saying, happy wife, happy life. Right, Neil? No, he says no. We'll get him one of these books. Yes. But I want you to think about it, because today we're going to read or start in the book of Ecclesiastes. What's interesting about the book of Ecclesiastes, to me, it is the greatest motivational self-help book out there. It's one of 66 books in this Bible. But it is a very important book. 12 chapters that addresses, and perhaps as I go into this, even Mary and I discussed it as she was reading Ecclesiastes also this week. She was saying it can be a little depressing when you would see this, but there's a purpose to this. Because one guy spent a good part of his life learning how to be miserable. He did. And he tried everything. And he ended up cynical and miserable. And so I think we can learn from others' examples. Just like our sermonette was about the example of Christ and what we can learn from there. But there are other people we can learn that example in another way. And I had an uncle one time that told me, I said, well, why didn't you do this? He goes, well, I would rather other people go and make those mistakes, and then I can learn from them. Which is a very good way to look at it. And so Solomon, the writer, tells us things that I want to bring out today and even next week. And I encourage you to read book of Ecclesiastes and read it in various translations, because there are so many deep meanings in it that it's good if we read it before the feast and even read it during the feast. Because I kind of gave it the title, What Really Matters. Because that's what he's trying to tell us. And when we're at the Feast of Tabernacles, we can reflect on what really matters as we celebrate as God commands us to. So I want to find different ways that we can learn from this book. So today I'm going to take 2 chapters. Chapter 1, chapter 2. And we'll talk about that. I'll explain some of that. Because if you just read the first chapter, just like reading chapters of these other books that we saw, they're a little more positive. But the first one kind of sets the tone. First chapter goes, what's it all worth? Why am I alive? It'd be better if I was dead. And it's like, wow, hate to hang around that guy on the Sabbath. I'd hate to hang around that guy anytime. So I want to make sure that we get and glean everything we can out of it so that it makes our life more understandable. Makes our state in life better understood by us. So who was the Solomon? He happened to be the wisest, as the Bible says, but also the richest. The wisest and richest man who ever lived. As a matter of fact, I just saw this week, I don't know if you saw it or not, Larry Ellison. Everybody know who Larry Ellison is? I would think many of you do. He's a very rich man. As a matter of fact, this week he became the richest man in the world, passing Musk, at over $400 billion is what he's worth. The writer we will hear from today as we read his work, as the historians have gone back and put it into today's funds, he was worth 5 or 6 times that. Multiple trillions of dollars is what Solomon's worth would be today. As a matter of fact, you even go back there and you see that his father, David, as a gift to build the temple and to help him along, gave him silver and gold worth almost $400 billion. So you never thought about David being rich. He was a rich daddy. And he left that to be used. So with that said, I'm going to look at this in a different way, because this writer is saying, I'm a teacher, I'm a preacher, I'm a king, and I'm the richest man who ever lived. And as that, he could do things and did do things we couldn't even imagine. So no matter what we read here, it's kind of like the Queen of Sheba came to him, spent time with him, and actually said, wow, everything I heard didn't even come close to what I see now. So whatever we read here and put together, imagine magnifying that many times over as we get a chance to see this and observe this man. Chapter 1, if you will join me, we're going to read. I'm bringing it from the New Living Translation, so if you don't want to read your Bible, what you have, I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation, which puts it in a little different spin. I've read 4 different versions of this book, and it all comes back to my title is What Really Matters. Chapter 1, verse 1. These are the words of the teacher, King Solomon's son, who ruled in Jerusalem. He said, everything is meaningless. Positive guy, huh? Says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people do what do people get for all their hard work under the sun. Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises, the sun sets, and hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south and then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome, beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. Isn't that a clue? We all want more, don't we? I want to see more. How much more stuff can we see? Just turn on your phones. Go to YouTube or go to these various things and you can see more and more. And if you go to bed, get up in the morning, new stuff. New stuff you can look at. Where does it take you? Usually around in circles. This is what he's telling us. Because we have this idea. See, he could have people telling him what was going on all around the world. He could have his own, like, news story. So he had people just telling him what was going on as he learned all these things. So no matter how much we hear, we are not content. Boy, doesn't that show a lot of times. History merely repeats itself. It all has been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new. But actually it's old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in the future generation, no one will remember what we are doing now. Isn't that so true? Remember in my high school, I was only 5, 6, 7 years old, new school. And when I came in, this guy came back to lecture. Nobody knew who he was. And yet, he was in the first year of the school, and he was a top athlete. He was the class president. He was student body. He was all, and he was not, nobody even knew him. This life that we live, will it be remembered? It will be remembered by God, because he actually says for his followers he has a book of remembrance. He writes your name down. And who really matters when it comes to that? Let's go on down. Verse 12. I, the teacher, was king of Israel, and I lived in Jerusalem. I devoted myself to search for understanding and explore by wisdom everything being done under the sun. We kind of see later that he might have been better if he kind of kept his eye on what was above the sun. I think it's a good lesson for all of us too, isn't it? I soon discovered that God has dealt a tragic existence to the human race. I observed everything going on under the sun, and it really is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Or as others said, it's all just vanity. Wouldn't that be sad if that's what life had brought you to as the richest, wisest person ever? Verse 15. What is wrong cannot be made right. What is missing cannot be recovered. I said to myself, look, I am wiser than any of the kings who ruled in Jerusalem before me. I got a little vanity problem there too, I'd say. I have greater wisdom and knowledge than any of them. So I set out to learn everything from wisdom to madness and folly. But I learned firsthand that pursuing this was like chasing the wind. Anybody ever chase the wind? I don't know if I would admit it if I were you, because they used to have these little whirlwinds that would pop up. They did in Tennessee. I haven't seen one down here. Do you have these? What are they called? Okay, that's okay. Very good. The ancient one speaks. And he tells us, because he's been there, done that, right? The older you get, the more you realize, wow, you see things different. And we would go and see these little whirlwinds go, and you would run and jump in the middle of them. Then they just disappeared. But it's like chasing them. How do you chase the wind? That's what he was using here. The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. Makes you want to put down the book after the first chapter. But what it does, it teaches you about the writer, the author. The one that's about to tell you and give you 11 more chapters of what really matters in this life. Because he'd gone through that. Haven't all of us gone through a time of where maybe not being a manic depressive, but you've kind of felt down and, you had to get yourself out of it? I have, where I just had to wake up because things were not going right, and I was like, wow, and I look up, what am I doing wrong? What am I, And so it can affect us. It affects everyone. Here, God had given him this wisdom because he asked for it. Or he wanted wisdom to guide a people. So it's the answer to life. And we see the author's state of mind as we look at that. He observed everything going on. Have you ever done that? I think today with our social media, with everything, we have phone, we have access to everything, and how many cable channels or how many things can you see, and have we lost the art of just looking at things? To just slow down and appreciate a bird. Whether the young people will understand that or not, I don't know. We have parks in this state, in most states of the Union. We have parks that people can just walk in. There was a purpose for that. Most parks were created decades ago. But it was to give people a time to spend in peace. Maybe solitude. Maybe to just, as the old Mac Davis song, stop and smell the roses a little bit. And yet, where is this going? Do you think that's coming closer and closer? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I read not long ago that parks are becoming less and less crowded because there's nothing going on. As a matter of fact, VRBOs have actually said, for those who want to rent something, that unless there is Wi-Fi, most people won't come. I got to stay up with it. Does this feed your spirit? There may be something, just like that beautiful song that was played up here, made you think about ancient words and how that's what we're reading. I think we need to get back to more ancient words. Have some peace. As a matter of fact, they say even reading is becoming obsolete to this generation. Our teachers can tell you that. They're seeing it. But let's go on to chapter 2. As I look at my watch, doing fine. So here is the second chapter. He said, I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. So he found he was miserable, so he goes, wow, then I'm just going to set out and go find pleasure. So maybe he went to the Disneyland of his day. I don't know. I guess he was wealthy enough to create his own Disneyland. But he said, come, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided I'll just cheer myself with wine. There you go. George, man after your own heart. George is our resident wine expert here. And says, and while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness in this way. I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and planting beautiful vineyards. He had the wine, so now he had to have a house. Remember the house? It's described in 1 Kings 7. This house he built for himself was 150 foot long, 75 foot wide, and 45 foot tall. In case you didn't know, that's 11 or 12,000 square foot if it was just one floor. This was similar at about 10, 12,000 square foot. He had what would be like this today, his own personal house. So let's see what happened. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born in my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, even thought into the trillions of dollars. Not billions, trillions of dollars of gold, silver. The treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women. He could get Taylor Swift to come and sing for breakfast. He could get anyone, because he could afford it. And he had all kinds, and they were at his beck and call. He didn't have the radio, he didn't have YouTube, but he had, bring them in, let them sing for me. And I had many beautiful concubines. He was the original sugar daddy, wasn't he? I mean, think about it. This man had 300 wives. Like, that isn't enough. 700 concubines were at his beck and call. 700 that he kept up. They lived well. 700. Does a man not know his limitations? Imagine that 700, and what did it say here? Beautiful, not an ugly one in the bunch. 700 women at his beck and call. Matter of fact, if you put down his 40 years of being king, and you put all the 1,000 women, he would have had to spend time with each one of them 2.5 weeks to go through them all. And how do you remember 700 women's names? What's her name? Honey, yes. Sugar, baby, whatever. Hey, babe, you look good. Well, but this is just unimaginable. Did it make him a better person? You find out later it didn't. What did it do? Made him miserable. And that's the problem I have. So I have to look at this woman, mine. She is mine. Think about it. You never see a woman take 700 men. They're smarter than that. But this guy just had a taste. And he reminds me of the story, many of you probably maybe have never heard of, J. Paul Getty. He was the first real billionaire, richest man in the world back in the 50s, 60s. He had 5 wives. He went through 5 wives, and in his book written about, and he had another 100 women besides that. And yet, it is written about him. I couldn't find his direct quote, but one of his writers said that he said he would give away all of his money if he could just have one good marriage. But then when I read the book, he left his first wife for a girl 17 years old. And then he left his second wife for another girl 17 years old. I don't think it's the women's fault. But I digress, because just like he said in the first, that's been around comes around. And so here, the richest man in the world at his time, what? He obviously didn't learn. He could have learned that all that was unnecessary if he'd have read about Solomon. And then it says, I had everything a man could desire. Nothing, not one thing he could think of he couldn't have, or probably didn't have. He had everything. And you would think, well, if I had just a better job, wait a minute, if I had a new car, if I had this and this and this. No. You'd have everything. Like he did. So basically, he denied himself no pleasure, and yet it made him miserable. What does that tell you? You want to be miserable? Go desire, don't deny yourself anything. You want to be happy? Why don't you deny yourself? Let's go on. So I became greater than all who ever lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was also meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. How depressing that would be, to come to that state of mind. Do everything, have everything, and nothing was worth anything. And you were miserable. So I decided to compare wisdom with foolishness and madness. For who can do this better than I, the king? I thought wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they are going, but the fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and foolish share the same fate. Both will die. He realizes as he gets older, okay, all this stuff I've done, I'm going to die. We're all going to die. Some of us may die sooner than others. And so, wait a minute, I've lived all this life and I've got all this stuff, but then I'm miserable. Because of him. Because of what he thought. Because of what he had become. Anything about anybody else in here? Did you see where, oh, wow, I could give this, I could help this, I could help that, I could give this, I could do that? But we find later he taxed his people a lot. Tax, because I want more stuff. This is what's happened. Let's continue on. So I said to myself, since I will end up the same as the fool, what's the value of my wisdom? This is also meaningless. For the wise and the foolish both die. So I'm sure he thought, wow, God gave me all this wisdom. I could figure these things out. People came. Queen of Sheba, I think, gave her gifts of now would be $300 and something million to come and to listen to him and have him teach. You know, I don't see anybody even out there that's ever even given me $5 for my wisdom. So just think about it. He's got all this stuff and it's not doing him any good. And then he looks at it and goes, I'm going to die. Because when you're younger, in my 20s and 30s, I didn't think I was going to die. I couldn't see it. I hear people who were 50s and 60s and 70s like, not much time. And I'm like, you poor pathetic people. And now I'm 66 years old. I can see it from here. I can see the grave from here. I couldn't see it 15 years ago, 20 years ago. This is what Solomon is trying to tell us. The wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool. In the days to come, both will be forgotten. So I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. 40 years as a king. Let's finish this chapter. Verse 18, I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I have earned. Isn't that part of what you have children for and your grandchildren for? Is that you work hard and you want them to work hard so that maybe you can leave them something? He's complaining about it, isn't he? I got to leave it to somebody else. Well, when you realize what his son Rehoboam became, you can kind of see why. And he probably saw that from a very young age. Verse 19. Verse 19. And who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. How selfish is that? Remember what God says at the end of the book, Revelation? It says that his children will inherit all things. It's the whole purpose. Because God is what? A giver. He's not a taker. And all he asks his children to be givers, not takers. Do you want to share? Or do you, I don't want them to have this. What a shame. What a shame that is. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work. Some people work wisely with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone else who hasn't worked for it. Now, I can understand they have deadbeat kids. You may have one. You may even be one. I don't know. But we all know one, don't we? We all know others who want something for nothing. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. For those of you who have businesses or built businesses, Don, you know that, and various people here. You start with little or nothing and you work so hard. And after 5 years, you're able to, you amass something and you begin to let your business grow. And then you find out, the accountant will tell you or somebody will tell you need some insurance. And you got to make sure you have insurance because everything you work for can be gone in a heartbeat. And one car crash. One mistake. So then you get that, and then a few years later, you're just like, he says, you really need an umbrella. No, not one of these. An umbrella, life insurance policy that covers things for it might happen so that they can't take your home and everything else. And then you get an umbrella. Then you feel good. But then your company grows, as many have in America and around this world. And what happens next? Well, your home It's looking pretty good, so you better have a security system on it. Because people are going to say, wow, that guy's got he has a good business. I think he's got money. Let's see what else he's got in the house. And then, if that works, and then you get even bigger, you got to have what? You got to have a bodyguard. Because otherwise, and your family has to have a thing, because they will kidnap your kids. Just like J. Paul Getty's grandson was kidnapped. Go back in that story. Cut his ear off. Tried to do a Vincent van Gogh. And to get a reward. And the richest man in the world said at the time, because of his grandchild, remember what happened? They said, well, we want this much money. He goes, nope, not going to give it to you. He said, well, we need to prove. We got proof, so they cut his ear off, send it to him. Okay. And then he came back, he goes, okay, let's negotiate. So he got him down. Because his grandson didn't really mean anything to him. It was just bad publicity. Or was it great-grandson? Grandson or great-grandson? I can't remember which one. But that's what Solomon is saying. The more I have, the more I need. Because I gotta protect my assets. Verse 24. So I decided that there's nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and find satisfaction in what? Work. Food and drink and satisfaction in work. It's like if you actually do your job, and we all get tired of our jobs, even wives. But we all get tired of our jobs, but if you go to work for 8 to 10 hours and you're miserable, find another job. That's what this is teaching you. If you're miserable or you can't stand the people you work with, do something else. Why should a third of your life be miserable right off? Instead of going, I gotta go to work, you can go, yes, going to go to work. But this is something that is taught at the Feast of Tabernacles. And you're going to see this through there. What does he tell us to do at the feast? Rejoice. And do what? Eat, drink, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Right? This is what this is all about. And he wants us to see so that we can have and enjoy. Take time out and enjoy this life and what's been given to you. So then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. See, God's giving us this. But we want to say, well, yeah, but God, I need a new car. I need a motor home. I need a second home. I need a lake house. Right? I need a new suit. This is, what's that special store I go to buy my suit? Goodwill. That's my Goodwill suit. It's got Ralph Lauren. It just had somebody wearing it before me. May have come from a funeral home. I don't know. But I could say, God, I need a new suit. One that hasn't been worn by a dead man. So these are all things that we can, their pleasures are from the hand of God. And this theme will go through as he says this. So it isn't just this one-shot thing. For who can enjoy anything apart from him? That gives us perspective. That's what really matters. Is take what he's given you. What did Paul say? I have learned to be content in whatever state. Yes. Can we? Are we thankful? Do we? Yes, sometimes. And God sees when it's sometimes too, doesn't he? Why should I give you more? When you're not even thankful for, that wonderful watermelon that you opened up and you ate. Yeah, small stuff. But to God, small stuff matters. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who he pleases. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Isn't it interesting? Why would he say that? Because most of us don't see the wealthy really taken away, but he was scared. Solomon's talking about himself. He knew he was getting away from God. He was afraid everything's going to be taken away. And when he's dead, it's all gone. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. So those are the first 2 chapters of this incredible book. So now, as I had to do, 55 years ago, I want to give you a book report. Do they still do that? Do you teachers ever have? No. You don't have book reports, or somebody has to stand up and you read a book and then you have to come in and that's gone. Okay, I see my teachers and both of them, that's gone. Because I used to have I may mention this before, I had a guy in my class that would, he didn't like to read, so he would always go out and find a book that there was a movie, and he just watched the movie and then came back and tried to sell it. Of course, the teacher always catch him and go, that wasn't in the book. Oh. So, my book report. Chapter 1. Having it all will not and cannot make you happy. Having it all will not and cannot make you happy. And it may be the exact opposite. Because he said, I learned firsthand that pursuing all this is vanity, or like chasing the wind. So it came to me that you think too much about you, and you will become cynical about life and your purpose. When it becomes all about you. And that's what happens with a lot of rich people. It's what happens with too many of the gifts that God gives. Chapter 2. Try to find meaning to life is a folly. All the money, the fame, and even the wisdom is all about one's vanity. As a matter of fact, I did find this story. I couldn't find the year, but on the internet, who knows? You never know, it's a true story, but it obviously did, because it many years ago, a man who had become recently divorced won a mega lottery. His wife had been complaining that he spent too much money on the lottery, so she divorced him, and he actually won. And he won $273 million. Not like, what was it last week, $1 billion or something? They were wanting, if you won, you'd get $1 billion. I mean, that's crazy. Taxes took over half of it when he got it. And he later said he wasted $100 million. When asked how, he stated, I spent money on the best alcohol made in the world. I spent money on hundreds of call girls and loose women. And I blew a lot of money gambling so many times I could not count. And the rest, he said, I wasted. Supposed to be a true story, who knows? But it shows, can come and it can go. The Feast of Tabernacles, we have 10% of our income, and we spend it in 8 to 10 days. We live like no other time of the year. for 95% of the people. Will it be this year, will it be about your pleasure? Because I think we can see from here it was all about Solomon's pleasure, wasn't it? Did you see any giving of any type in those words? No. Pleasure is good, not bad. Motivational says in Deuteronomy 14, verse 26, whatever your heart desires, he wants you to have so that you can experience what the world will be like when he returns and sets up his kingdom. It's a physical and spiritual visual picture that he wants us to experience. One of the reasons this was read to the people at that time. So will the kingdom of God that you picture, that you envision, will it be about your pleasure or the pleasure of others? It says we will be teachers, kings and priests. Teachers don't do it for the money. It's not worth it. What? They do it because they want to help people. They want to help kids. Maybe do better than they had the chance to do. A royal priesthood, a chosen generation is what it's called. We are training for that. And it's about others. It will be about others then. Because we'll be rich. We will inherit all things. So we are sons of God, sons and daughters of God. But what does he want us to do? To teach others? To help others? To heal others? To do all the stuff that Jesus Christ came and did in that 3.5 years? He did in 3.5 years. All the things that he did, we're to be like him because we're going to have 1,000 years to do it. That's what the Bible's showing. That's how important. Because the Feast of Tabernacles is God's family reunion. He gets to see his kids all play. And I know many of you have had kids and grandkids come around. You just really enjoy it. Watching them young. I do. I do my nephews and great nephews and nieces. And she's already miserable in the back. Well, you know what's good about this? You know what's good about crying? That's the future of the church. We're growing. That's what's great about it. See, we were to picture a type of Eden on earth. It's called the kingdom of God. So remember these words that he gave us from Ecclesiastes 1 and Ecclesiastes 2. Does her mother have that good of lungs? Because she can really cry. Eat, drink, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Because it helps picture a time in the future. Helping and serving others feeds your spirit. God's Spirit in you. And I'll wrap up with a story. True story. I know this one because I experienced it. I was at a Feast of Tabernacles. First one when I was married. And it was a rather large feast. And I remember going to the bathroom. It was like the last day of the feast. I went in this nice bathroom and saw this older gentleman. He was old at that time, maybe 60s. I was in my 20s. And I saw him, and he wasn't dressed very well. And he had a sock toboggan hat on. You know what those are? That little, no. And this was in Southern California, and I'm going, that's weird. It's already hot. What's he wearing that hat on? And then I was washing my hands, and almost everybody had left in the bathroom, and the man comes out, and he takes the hat off. And there is a tumor coming out of his head that is 4 inches above his head. And it actually was dripping, and he was taking something to clean it. And then he didn't see me. I didn't pay attention. And then he put his sock toboggan hat back on. And as I was then went back up, I said, Mary, I saw a very powerful sight. So we went to eat lunch between the two services. And we went just so we could walk. It was very close. It was a nice place. And there was that man walking into this place. But what I saw was he was looking at his wallet to check. But he came in and he sat by himself. Didn't put his head down. And I remember showing him to Mary. And I looked, and I went over to the waiter and said, make sure you bring me his bill. Because I just wanted to give him something. Because boy, was I enjoying myself. And this man, whatever his problem was, he's a tough life. I said, and do not tell him who did it. So he did. And he ate very quickly. If I remember, I looked over and he had like a bowl of soup. That's about it. And as he gets up and he goes to pay his bill, because he can't find the waiter. Waiter didn't come back. I saw him go up to them, and then he just stood there looking around, trying to see what happened. That fed my soul. This feast, feed your souls. Experience what it's like to be in the Guide family and help others. One last verse, if you'll join me. Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 13. The end of the book. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God. And do what? Obey his commandments. For this, brethren, is everyone's duty. We have a chance to experience the kingdom, if only for 8 days, and have the state of mind that God wants us to have. Next week, we'll look at 2 more chapters.